Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
And welcome to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Over the next hour, we're going to talk a lot of football. New Orleans Saints football. We'll get into the LSU Tigers and also the Tulane Green Wave. And we got a great panel to kind of break it down for you tonight. Lenny Vangilder of SportsNewell.com and so much more, along with Mike Fazende of 990 AM WGSO, are our panelists tonight. And gentlemen, thanks for being with us. Certainly appreciate you guys coming down and being part of the panel tonight. And Lenny, we'll start with you. Tell us a little bit about Sports Knoll and some of the other things you're involved in.
Well, first of all, if you haven't been to Sports Knoll in the last couple of weeks, we've got a brand new website for you to look at. One of the stories that's up there this evening with our friend Ed Daniels from WGNO, who reported the story first just about an hour ago, in fact, is that Tom Benson apparently was taken to the hospital a couple of days ago for dehydration. And he's fine. He was back at practice today, but we saw what happened at the NFL meetings in Atlanta, and now this incident. The man is 87 years old, and you have to be concerned when these little blips from a health perspective happen, and dealing with the future management of this organization.
Yeah, I would agree. And again, we've talked about it on this program. Jeff Duncan's wrote about it extensively. There is a plan in place in case something was to happen to Mr. Benson, but this has kind of been a little bit of a situation where we're seeing this more than one time, and it's been in the recent past. So, we hope that he's going to recover. And again, the last thing you want to see for a franchise that looks like they get ready to win a Super Bowl, or at least in position to do that, is something to happen to ownership.
Well, certainly. And I mean, you point to what just happened a week ago in Denver, with Pat Bowlen basically handing off the reins of the organization as he deals with Alzheimer's. But we've seen in the last year, we've seen 4 primary owners pass away in the NFL, and we're not ready to declare, Mr. Benson in that situation yet by any means here.
Right.
But obviously he is one of the oldest owners in the NFL, and clearly there is a plan in place, and it's just a matter of when that plan is going to be enacted. Is it going to be sooner? Is it going to be later?
Right.
We wish him all the best, but obviously, as we've seen a couple of these situations now in the last couple of months, you have to worry about that.
I would definitely agree. Mike Fazende with us for a return visit. Mike, welcome. Tell the folks a little bit about your blog, and of course, you're with me each and every Friday.
Fazende on Football blog comes on. I come on Fridays with you, Eric, every day from 11 to noon. Fazende on Football. I'm also on your website as well, Mark Clark's website, Facebook, Google me. I'm all over the place. I do a blog about the Saints, LSU, Tulane, anything football that I can, high school, think of, and maybe I'll throw in a little Pelicans.
There you go. Well, we're going to talk a lot about football tonight. Let's start off with the Monday Morning Quarterback article on Champ Bailey, which I found kind of strange when I read it. Reporter comes in, says, throws out this and declares that Champ Bailey will not make the Saints team. Now, we're kind of at a loss. We're not at camp, but all of us have had a chance to speak to individuals that are at camp. I've had guys on my show each and every day, at least 2 a day, if I can get them, that will kind of give us a snapshot of what's happening in the Greenbrier. To me, it's a little bit early, Lenny, to be able to say that Champ Bailey's going to be dead and buried. They've got some young talent. Obviously, Patrick Robinson's playing much better coming back off the injury. But I just think that Bailey's role will be more than what we're going to see on the field. He's also there to mentor some of these young players.
I think you hit it right on the head. Now, I will say this, that the DB position is arguably the deepest on this football team right now. I think you'd put it and wide receiver side by side as 1 and 1A as the 2 deepest position groups, and the toughest cuts probably that they're going to have to make when it comes down to it. We've got another week of practice. We've got a scrimmage on Saturday. We've got 4 preseason games to let this thing play itself out. Like you said, this was earlier in the week, on day 4 of camp, and we're ready to, already make
he's already throwing the proverbial dirt on him.
I mean, is this election night, and we've got exit polling going on here? I don't know. So it's, we're declaring winners at 8:01 right after the polls close. No, it's nothing of the sort, and I think there's a long way to go, and obviously I think it's a situation that if he's not the second or the third cornerback, then maybe you give him a chance to go be a more active player if you still think he can play on another team.
Right.
But we've still got a long way to go in determining whether he's going to be that second, the third, the fourth, fifth cornerback, whatever it might be when it all shakes out. And you bring up a point with Patrick Robinson. He clearly looks like he's back from that injury in week 2 of 2013, and one thing you'll notice with the Saints staff is they really, when it comes to injuries, they will bring guys back with kid gloves.
Yes.
You see what's going on with John Jenkins right now. You've seen it in years past with other players as they come back from injuries in the off season or from the previous season. They're very slow to wean them back. But clearly, Patrick Robinson has kind of reestablished himself out there, what we have seen previously.
Great. Mike, what can you add to the Champ Bailey situation? Signed a cap-friendly deal, so it's not like he's costing the Saints a lot. I just thought it was a little bit premature to be able to say this guy is going to be cut, not going to make the team when you're this early in camp.
Yeah, I don't know what he was watching or where he got his information from. It's a national guy. I don't put much stock in what the national guys say. They just fly in and fly out and want to make headlines, and I think that made headlines. It was on every national, ESPN, NFL network. All of them had it running on a little ticker tape on the bottom, and they even had reports about it. I mean, I spoke to Sean Fazende, my son, Fox 8, before I came on tonight. Patrick Robinson's beating him out. Mm-hmm. He looks like the front runner right now to get that position, but it doesn't mean he's going to be cut. I mean, there's a guy in Champ Bailey that he has value. He has a position. He has a place on that defense, whether it's guarding a slot receiver, coming in on nickel. You don't know who's going to get hurt. Robinson's coming off an injury. So there's plenty of factors going in. Corey White is may emerge. You got the number 2 draft pick, Jean Baptiste. So plenty of factors. I think what this guy did was he came in and saw all these young guys in camp, talented young guys, saw a guy in Champ Bailey who's in his mid-30s and thought, well, who's the odd man out here? And if you look at it that way, maybe it is Bailey. But then we'll have to wait and watch the preseason and let it play out.
Yeah, I would agree.
Before we can say.
I think the preseason is the key. I mean, you got to see what he's got left in the tank. And like I said, I think there's more to this signing with Bailey than just him, whether he's going to be the starter, whether he's going to be the nickel or dime guy. I think it's also about a lot of young players that need to be mentored in the locker room and teach them how to be professionals.
Yeah, but you still have to be able to play. I mean, all that mentoring stuff's great, but if you can't do it on a field, then they have to have people who can do it.
And he's got to stay away from injury as well.
Yeah, I mean, it all goes, you tell me how to play, you can't even get on a field. Right. It's that type of deal. So I think if there's any gas left in the tank, he'll be in Atlanta when the Saints open the season.
Jarvis Byrd is back, no pun intended. Again, you look at him, they have not put him on the 11 versus 11 drills as of yet, but he is moving fairly well. Your thoughts on that, Lenny? And again, you mentioned it just a few minutes ago. They do handle their players with kids' gloves when they're coming off an injury. They're more worried about Jarvis Byrd against Atlanta than Jarvis Byrd against St. Louis.
Right. They know what he can do. This is not a rookie out there. They've seen what he can do in Buffalo, and you're right. They're bringing back slowly. Took him off of PUP on Tuesday, the physically unable to perform list, which is different in the preseason and in camp than it is in the regular season. So you could just keep guys on there until they pass their physical and then bring them back. So he's been out there just a little bit here for these, off on Wednesday, so Tuesday and Thursday out there for part of the practices. But the thing that is encouraging to me on that end is, and we saw a little bit of it last year when they play with 3 safeties.
Yes.
Last year it was Jenkins, Harper, Vaccaro. Well, now Jenkins and Harper are gone. you're looking at a situation where it would be Vaccaro, Bush, Bird, and if you get big out there on the corners, and depending on how you play, if that you mentioned nickel formation, if that is your nickel formation using three safeties, with essentially Vaccaro becoming your third corner,
right?
Well, that's a big time upgrade. Those three guys.
That's an intriguing formation to be able to go out there and play pass coverage.
I mean, that's a huge upgrade in my opinion. The guys he mentioned this year, if we get a Jarris Bird who's back to 100%, as opposed to what they had last season with Jenkins and Harper and Vaccaro, then and did you mention Bush? Bush
yes.
throws in there as well. So I mean, huge upgrade. I mean, that's exciting to think about.
Well, and you heard today Rob Ryan talking about they're going to kind of take this to the next level, this defense. We saw a lot of exotic looks during the Greg Williams time as defensive coordinator. They all come from that same defensive tree. And now that you've got a second year with most of these guys in the fold, you could see a little bit more of a tinkering with this defense, where again you'll see different formations, and you may see much like we did last year, a lot of safety play. They've got you talk about the talent. You mentioned a lot of talent in the secondary. Got a lot of talent in that secondary in that safety position.
No doubt about it. And I mean they'll carry 10 guys back there, because the thing to remember is not only those backup guys, whether it's the younger players, like the rookie Jean-Baptiste, like Sunseri, who we haven't even mentioned, he's coming back, off the ACL as a rookie here. But some of those guys, they become key guys on special teams as well.
Yeah.
So you're going to see, 10, possibly 11 DBs on this roster. Linebackers, defensive linemen. I guess it depends on what they choose to play a little more of in terms of formation, what you might see in terms of that, whether you see maybe one more defensive lineman and one less linebacker, or vice versa. So, but of the 53 guys, you've got 3 specialists, and you're going to probably end up with like 28 guys on defense and maybe 22 on offense when it's all said and done.
Right. And Mike, I mean, again, you heard Bush say this week that he is no longer thinking, he's
right.
reacting, and that's huge in the second year, having a defensive coordinator 2 years in a row and knowing the system.
Yeah, I think having a guy like Raphael Bush come back with another year under Ryan's system, having mentioned that he's now reacting and not thinking, I mean that's the wild card right there. I mean, teams I would imagine are worried about Bird and Vaccaro and maybe overlooking Bush, and they'll do that to their own peril, because to me he displayed last season the one guy that could hit beside Vaccaro, and a guy who has range back there at the safety position.
I like his ball skills.
And his ball skills as well. But I mean, he's kind of like a poor man's Gene Atkins when Atkins played for Mora, that type of safety, hard hitting, a throwback, if you will, because he's a hard hitting guy. He's a ball hawk. He's got range. So I really like Bush's game. And if he's up, emerging after another season under Ryan, then they are really loaded back there. And maybe they can afford to bring Bird along a little slower.
Right, and you mentioned it, Leonard, when you talk about the cornerback position. Guys that are big, guys that can put their hands, bump and run, and the ability to do that is, again, when you got guys on the back end that can cover, that have, as Mike mentioned, great range. That's what Bird brings to the table. Vaccaro's almost a corner in a safety's body, and of course, Mike just really eloquently said what Bush is all about. That's what they're looking for now in that big corner opposite Keenan Lewis.
Yeah, you need that, and obviously you potentially have that down the road in somebody like a Jean-Baptiste. Who's 6'3". But look at what has happened to the receivers in the NFC South and league-wide, for that matter. You've got to cover some big guys out there. You've got to be able to get physical. And it's evolving into a different game, not just tight end position, but the guys who line up wide. You may face some of these teams, 3 guys across that are all 6'4" and taller and can all run. It is a different game, and that's that area. What you're seeing in the wide receivers has been the biggest evolution in the game the past few years, outside of rule changes and such. But now the defense is starting to react like that. You see what Seattle did last year, and look, this is a copycat league.
Yes.
I found it interesting that someone was trying to attribute it to the colleges where Sean Payton's playing music during stretch and during some team drills and things like that. Pete Carroll does that.
Yeah.
Everything that the team that wins the Super Bowl does the year before, everybody else is going to start copying.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, look, the big defensive back. I mean, we saw when Jabari Greer. I mean, as good as he was with the Saints, the last couple of seasons, it really his whole time with the Saints, in those one-on-one matchups when it was a jump ball situations, I mean, it was really not much he could do. I mean, you think about last season against New England in the last play of the game, he's this far. If he's 5'11", instead of 5'10", or whatever, he makes the play.
Right.
So the bigger cornerbacks, guarding the bigger receivers, it all depends on the pass rush. I think that's the big equation in all this. You got to get heat on the quarterback.
Yes.
Because the bigger guys, they don't have the agility as the smaller ones, the defensive backs.
John Jenkins still on the PUP list with the pectoral injury, but we're hearing that he's been on the sled, looking good, could come back any day now. Mike, we've talked about it on this program, on the radio show as well. That was an injury that I think a lot of people were worried about, simply because of the position he plays. I'm looking for a big year out of John Jenkins. I thought last year, every game that he played in, he got better, and I'm really looking for a big year out of him if he could stay healthy.
I agree. And obviously there's some depth on the defensive line as well, and he did, especially those interior guys. You're not going to be asked to play every snap. It's always been interesting to me. Offensive lineman and quarterback are the only two positions in the league where you play every snap, basically. Yeah. Everything else is rotated through, be it situational or just trying to get fresh guys in there like you do on the defensive line. If you play 60 snaps a game on defense, let's say, those defensive linemen are going to be asked to play 25, 30 snaps. Maybe not even, depending on the score and the time and down in distance and things like that. Somebody like Jenkins may only be asked to play 15 or 20 snaps a game. So he's just got to be able to give you those 20, 25 good snaps a game. And again, you mentioned it earlier with Bird trying to get him ready to go for September 7th. They know what they've got in Jenkins. You want to get the rust off here in the preseason a little bit, but at the end of the day, you're trying to get ready for September 7th.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on a Rob Ryan system. Bird's new to it.
Yes.
So you think he would need a little more practice time to get ready. But Jenkins, as he said, he's proven last season. I agree with you, Eric. And the guy I love is Akeem Hicks. I mean, this guy's talent is off the charts, and for his size, a guy that can move like he can, and his strength, and you put him alongside Jenkins, alongside Cameron Jordan, and then you got Junior Gillette and Victor Butler and guys like that. That pass rush is going to be. You talk about a deep position. I mean, I know Butler's a linebacker, and Gillette is sort of a linebacker, but he rushes the passer.
Yes.
He doesn't drop in coverage. I mean, you talk about deep. And I didn't even mention Walker and Foster.
Well, how good can this defense be this year, this version? They obviously, they got some guys coming back from injury. They've added at some key positions. One of those, obviously, going out and getting the best safety on the market. Last year, they were a top 5 defense. How good can they be?
Well, obviously, it's hard to be better than a top 5 defense, except you move up a couple of notches there. Now, the biggest thing this defense needs to improve on, and again, judging by the reports from what we've seen up there, the emphasis is on causing takeaways.
Turnovers, yeah.
You've got to be able. This team was flat out bad at taking the football away last year.
They need playmakers, and the thing that Jarvis Bird is a playmaker. And that's what Champ Bailey is too. As old as he is, as long as he's been in the league, he's a playmaker. Yeah, he may not be as fast as he once was, but he knows the positioning, he knows where the ball's gonna be. He can read, he can watch film and read formations and this type of stuff. So that's the thing that the Saints, I think, really are focusing on. He's right. Lenny's right. Playmakers, causing turnovers. They had everything last year. They had the sacks. They were coming around against the run, but the turnovers. Right. And I mean in 09 the Saints got a lot of turnovers.
Exactly.
And that did what happened.
Yeah, that did 2 things. One, defense scored plenty.
Yes.
Yeah. What was it? 8 or 9 touchdowns that year. It was including of course the the famous interception return in the Super Bowl. But the other thing it does is it gives you a short field.
Yep,
And
absolutely.
you give Drew Brees in that offense a short field, and
And it gives them it gives them the ball more time.
Right. It does.
There you got an extra possession, and it's just on a shorter field.
Right.
I mean, 3 and out's great, but they still punting, and you still got a whole field to go. Usually you got a full field to drive, but you get those turnovers, man. Short field with that offense.
It's amazing the transition that we've seen from the year that Peyton was out and Spagnuolo took over, and again with trying to really force feed this defense into a situation where ultimately they came from a Greg Williams system. They were used to playing a certain way. There wasn't really flexibility on Spagnuolo's part. To again coming in, Rob Ryan comes in with a system that's similar to Greg Williams, but then all of a sudden, as we've talked about a lot, they're counting on these veteran guys to come in and play this system. Guys get hurt. They can't come back from injury quick enough during camp. They find these young guys that all of a sudden are the panacea for what they've needed, because for years they were slowing down. They couldn't run sideline to sideline. There was a lack of athleticism. Man, all of a sudden now you're looking at all these young guys, and then you're adding these pieces to the puzzle like a Bird, maybe a Bailey, that can be complementary pieces to what you already have. And all of a sudden, for a team that was known for offense, you really got a defense that you have to be reckoned with.
No doubt. And look, obviously that is an area that needed to be addressed. You mentioned 2 years ago when this team set an NFL record for the most yards allowed in a season. I mean, it was, you had a whole laundry list of all of the things that were negative thresholds and landmarks that they hit that year. But that amazing turnaround just in 1 year under Rob Ryan, and now you're going into year 2 of that system where you've played it for a year. Obviously, look, last year a lot of that was, I attribute a lot of that to enthusiasm of a new system and adapting to it and showing people something different. But, now you have to be able to take it to another level in the second year of a system.
Yes.
Well, the thing you love about Rob Ryan is something that really isn't intangible. It's his ability to make adjustments on the fly, his ability to put guys in position to succeed. And you come off a season with Spagnuolo, and you mentioned my blog. Not even halfway through that season, I called for him. He's got to go. And I took a lot of heat at the time. And one of the guys I mentioned as his possible replacement was Rob Ryan, because he's a turnaround specialist. That was my point. Was that's what the Saints defense needed. And to Sean Payton's credit, maybe he read my blog. I don't know. Maybe he did. But before he got his first roast beef po' boy, he fired Spagnuolo when he was reinstated.
He reads everything, by the way, so he probably
maybe
did.
So.
They hear everything too. Yes. Believe me.
But I just and Rob Ryan, we say it a lot. He and Greg Williams come from the same tree.
Yes.
From Buddy Ryan.
Right.
And those guys understand schemes, and they understand defense and how to make adjustments and how to put guys in positions to succeed. And I think it only gets better because the personnel under Ryan is a lot better than it was under Williams, especially in the second season.
Well, it's interesting. Again, you've got this turnover of young players that now you've got a faster defense, you've got a more athletic defense, you've got a deeper defense, especially along the defensive line. And you mentioned, when you look at the defensive backfield, probably one of the deepest parts of the team. Linebacker, you're in a little bit of a transition here. You got some guys in Hawthorne and Lofton. Good players, Lofton I think is a very good player, but they've got contracts that are ballooning. So look at the draft, and you look at the guys they've drafted. Maybe some heir apparents down there down the line, guys that are going to have to be kind of eased in. But then all of a sudden you flip it to the other side of the ball. You had an aging offense. You had an aging offensive line. You had an aging wide receiving core. And I think Peyton saw that. He realized that the shock and awe of this offense was gone. They weren't scaring anybody anymore. And then all of a sudden in the offseason, they concentrate now on first of all, at that launch point for Drew Brees, trying to protect him, so they make a move at the center position. And then you got to love what they're doing. Year 2 of Kenny Stills. They go out and get a Brandon Cooks. Finally, Nick Toon looks like he's coming into his own. We'll see what happens again when they're at it for real. And then you got the situation with Jimmy Graham. So we'll see. I mean, I think we're seeing that kind of on offense now on the fly, where you've got a little bit of a changing in the guard here. We'll see what happens again if they can unseat some of these veterans. But all of a sudden now, you got an opportunity to maybe get back to what a Peyton offense was, where they were unpredictable and you had to worry about them taking the top off of it, because they could at any time be a quick strike offense.
No doubt. And You know, the one X factor in my mind in this offense this year, especially early on, is going to be Brandon Cooks. You know, because you don't know what they're going to try and do with him. I mean, we heard some things last week of OTAs, which was the only time that he could participate based on his class schedule at Oregon State, and wasn't allowed to come into it until the end. They're running fly sweeps with him, things like that. Not something we've seen a Peyton offense do. I would not be surprised to see him line Brandon Cooks up in the backfield, a la Percy Harvin.
Right.
You know, something exactly what Seattle had done a minute before that at Minnesota. You know, and again, you're going to put players in position. You know, we talked about this a few weeks ago. When they break the huddle with 5 skill guys, teams have to match up based on that. You don't know where those guys are going to line up right away. You don't know if Jimmy Graham's going to be lined up on the numbers or if he's going to be lined up in tight. You know, with Darren Sproles before, you didn't know if he was going to be lined up in the backfield, in the slot, out wide. They're going to, I think they're going to try and do some of those same kind of things with Cooks. And it will be, you know, preseason's not going to show anything.
No,
he's going to. First of all, a lot of those guys aren't going to play. Drew Brees will play one series next
and
year.
he's not showing anything to Atlanta.
Of course not.
And what I love about it, I wouldn't doubt it if Sean Payton's letting the reporters show the Saints run a little reverse with Cooks and a little screen pass, just to put that seed in the defensive coordinators' minds that they're going to be playing, because you know they watch it. Atlanta's scouting already for the Saints. They're already preparing for it. And I'm sure the Saints are doing a little game planning too. But, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if Payton, let's run a little reverse. Let's give him something to think about.
Right.
And the great thing about the Saints offense when it's clicking is it gets into the head of the opposing team's offensive coordinator, quarterback. Man, we got to keep up. You know, we got to score a touchdown when we come. We can't kick a field goal. And in their minds, one mistake, and, you know, man, they're going to keep compounding this lead. And that's when the Saints play under the lights in the dome and the crowd's behind them. It's usually an avalanche. Right. It snowballs, boom, boom, boom. And they get on that roll, man.
Getting back to the point of the turnovers and the takeaways earlier, that's a lot of what we saw
Absolutely.
in 2009.
Yes.
They were playing with huge leads. That's part of why the running game numbers were so good in 2009 was because the fourth quarter, they're running the football and grinding out the clock.
Right. Well, when you played against a good defensive team last year, I don't think they feared the Saints going deep on them. I think they lost that shock and awe type offense. I think that at least on paper, they look like they can get back to that. You've got some guys that can run. You've got some guys that you can utilize in different positions where you're not going to be a team that ultimately, as soon as they come out like with Darren Sproles, you knew that what they were going to do. They became very predictable. I think that they self-scouted themselves in the offseason, and we won't see that predictability that we saw last year. And a lot of that has to do, again, with the influx of speed, which is something I think we saw really kind of lost over the last couple of years because, let's face it, we had some guys that were aging.
Sure. And I mean, and then last year, you know, in the black and gold scrimmage on Airline Drive last year, you lost Joseph Morgan for the year. You get him back now. So if you've got Morgan and you've got Cooks, 2 speedsters, okay, Stills is not slow. They don't use him in a role. I mean, although he did get deep some last year, and I think he may have even led the league in yards per catch last year. But, you know, and obviously Colston is more of a possession guy. And, you know, Graham, depending on who is guarding him, they allow him to try to stretch the field as well. But, you know, I think you add in Cooks, and essentially Morgan is almost like a free agent, much like Victor Butler is a free agent, and that they're guys coming back from being out for the year last year. So you put those guys in there. I don't think you'll necessarily see in there together a lot, but they do give you that deep threat.
Mike, you think you can add before we go to break?
I just think that the receiving core aged a little bit last season. Colston's up there, Lance Moore. They couldn't get the separation. And again, with the emergence of Jimmy Graham, Breeze's eyes goes to Graham first, maybe at times. Maybe that's his first read. So, and maybe that attributed to not having that shock and all. But they were still, top 5?
Yeah. Oh, no.
In the NFL. They had a bad season. That's bad for them, I guess.
But they didn't put the fear in defenses that they did at
on
one
the
time.
road. I think at home they did.
Agreed.
But on the road, the Saints were not feared.
Yes. You're watching Inside New Orleans Sports each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE TV with our live broadcast at 6 p.m. Each and every Friday here on WLAE and Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette at 10 p.m. We invite you to, again, tune into either of the shows or set your DVR. We'll take a quick break. We got a great panel for you tonight. Lenny Lenny Vangilder of SportsNola.com and Mike Fazende of 990 AM WGSO. I'm your host, Eric Asher. Don't go anywhere.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natel's Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is literally saving kids' lives.
It's a very special place, friendly place.
To see the kids that they're helping on a daily basis was unbelievable.
Families never receive a bill from St. Jude.
Discoveries made at St. Jude are freely shared.
The hardest cancer cases in the world go to St. Jude. We won't stop until no child dies from cancer.
Join us.
Join us
in supporting Hoops for St. Jude.
Visit stjude.org/hoops to find out how.
He's inside the 5. He's in. Touchdown.
He's gone from really good to great to dominant to overwhelming.
He was the first young player I'd ever offered.
He became the face of Louisiana football.
Watch Road to Stardom, the Leonard Fournette story, Sunday, August 24th at 9 p.m. and Thursday, August 28th at 8 p.m. Only on WLAE, New Orleans Public Television.
Welcome back to Inside New Orleans Sports. I'm your host, Eric Asher, each and every Thursday night right here on WLAE TV. We invite you to make sure that you check us out. Guys, let's talk a little bit about the wide receiver core, and specifically, they carry 5, they carry 6. What do you think they're going to carry, and who do you think will make the team?
The 5 or the 6 depends on what guys can do on special teams. You need that ability, whether it's somebody who's a returner, someone who can cover on kicks. That will make the decision. When you get down to those last spots, whether it's 5 or 6 receivers, whether it's 10 or 11 DBs, it's 7 or 8 linebackers, those types of things, that's going to be dictated by who are your best special teams players. The initial 53 last year, remember, Andy Tanner made it and then ended up, they reversed field, and a week later when Robert Meacham became available to them. But I think that will determine it. And it's going to be a tough call. I said earlier, I think wide receiver and DB are the 2 deepest positions on this team.
Joe Morgan make the team?
He's in tough.
Right.
He's in tough. I mean, there's no doubt. Especially with Cooks now being there, does Cooks become what Morgan was?
Right.
I'd love to be able to see them both out there at the same time.
If he's at his top speed, yeah.
Well, you got some bubble guys. Nick Toon, Robert Meacham, Joe Morgan. You got to figure those guys are the ones that are on the bubble right now. Toon's having a great camp right now. You can trust Meacham. You know who Meacham is. And at this point, I think Peyton said today that he really expects Morgan to be more full speed next week. You got a couple young guys, Sontavious Jones and Brandon Coleman. Both those guys obviously look like they could be practice squad candidates. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I've been on Sontavious Jones since before the draft. I've been watching this guy's career at Valdosta. He's long, fast. You talk about tall receivers, 6'3"-ish, 6'4", about 210, runs a 4.5-ish. Got really good hands, but he's a free agent. And you mentioned Nick Toon. I think Peyton has a soft spot in his heart for Nick Toon. I think he's one of Peyton's kind of favorites. He wants Toon to make it. He was a high draft pick. It was like a 4th-round pick, I think.
I thought he was a late pick, but go ahead.
Oh, well, he was a draft pick nonetheless. But I think he's going to give Toon every chance he can. Kind of made excuses for him about his appearance last season, was hurt, had a couple of bad games, and he just couldn't break through the lineup. Now, you had a slowed down Lance Moore last season, and nobody's going to beat out Marcus Colston. He's your rock out there. So, I don't know. Brandon Coleman's another undrafted free agent, big, 6'5", 220. He has trouble with drops still. So, you can't be in Peyton's offense if you're going to drop the ball.
Len, do you remember whether he was an undrafted free agent or a draft pick? I'm talking Toon.
Toon was drafted. I believe he might have been 4th, 5th round. He, you're right. He's had a great camp.
Yes.
He's had a tremendous play today. Beat double coverage for a big time catch near the end of practice today in the morning session. But the other thing to remember, some of these guys can get through. And also keep this in mind, too, especially, and this has got Robert Meacham written all over it, okay? is there the NFL rule about if you are on the roster week 1, you're a veteran, your contract is guaranteed for the year.
Season, right?
So if Meacham, if they can find a way to say, okay, Robert, we're gonna waive you, and then come week 2, they slip him back in. Now his contract's not guaranteed for the entire year. You've seen that done with guys before. What'll happen a lot? They don't even they may let him go the Saturday before the opener sometimes, and after rosters are pretty well set, and then try to bring a guy back on Tuesday or Wednesday afterwards.
Also, if they can get a Courtney Roby at wide receiver, the gunner, the guy can go back and return kicks and be a threat. I mean, that would be a bone. That's the guy that's going to make this team. That's going to be that 6th or 5th receiver.
And Tune is a 4th-round pick, by the way. Drew Brees says he's going to play to 45. We had this discussion last week about Drew Brees, and he is 35 years old. He was born on January 15th, 1979. He has been.
I graduated high school.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? He's been fairly injury-free since he's been here in New Orleans. Lenny, your thoughts on Drew Brees, the longevity of Brees?
I admire his goal setting of wanting to play that long. I think at the end of the day, that's going to get decided by other people. Yeah. How effective can he be? If he can continue to be an effective player, and obviously I think with the ability to do strength and weight training and fitness and things like that. Obviously, I think you're seeing guys play longer. I mean, he's probably only the 4th oldest quarterback, 3rd oldest quarterback in the NFL among the starters right now. So, let's see how long some of these guys do play, because you've got guys that are older than him. Peyton's older than him, Brady's older than him. So, how long are those guys going to stick around and play? Peyton obviously is 2 years removed from a major back situation. The one major injury that Drew has had in his career was that shoulder at the end of the 2005 season before he came to New Orleans. We're 9 years removed from that. So as long as he stays healthy and this offensive line keeps him upright, he can obviously be effective, and he's a brilliant orchestrator of Sean Payton's offense. The one concern that I would have, going forward, is maintaining arm strength to be able to play that far.
Mike, what are your thoughts? 45, a little ambitious, but...
Well, I think even Brees knows that. I don't think he was completely serious. I think he was just doing, hey, I feel like I can play. Like he was almost being like challenging you. I mean, I could play till I'm 45. What do you mean I'm getting old? I'm only 35. But, hey, listen, Favre was 42 when he played his last season with the Vikings? And his last season was a disaster, but the season before they made it to the championship game and one pass from going to the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. And he doesn't put 1/100th of the time and effort that Drew Brees puts into as far as working out, off-season programs, studying film, that type of deal. So I would say there's no way he could play till he's 45, but hey, 42, 43, who knows? You never know, barring injury.
Mike, weaknesses and strengths of this team as they go into their the black and gold scrimmage and then on to St. Louis for the first preseason game.
I would say a weakness would be we still have to find out if the offensive line is going to be able to protect Brees up the middle. I would say that the receiving core is deep. They're young. You got some fresh faces on board with Brandon Cooks, and if Nick Toon can come around, those will be new starters to this team. Stills is just in his 2nd season. NFL teams know about him, but Graham is the big protector of those guys. As long as you have Jimmy Graham as a threat, those guys will have a little bit easier time getting open. But I would say offensive line right now and running game, just because they haven't proven that they can sustain a running game on the offensive side. On defense, I'd say linebackers, but with the defensive front the Saints have and the defensive backs they do, you don't need great linebackers. They're protected from the guys up front and the guys behind them. You got guys that know where to go and know how to tackle. And I think that'll be fine.
Lenny, for you, weaknesses and strengths of this team?
I think your strength starts with number 9. We were just talking about him, right. Obviously. I mean, this whole thing, everything you do revolves around him. I would say concerns. It's hard to pinpoint weaknesses, but concerns. I would agree with Mike about offensive line. The center position is still unsettled at this point. Tim Lolito has not played an NFL game at center. Jonathan Goodwin is 35 years old. Who is going to be, who is going to be the center?
Yeah.
And how effective will they be? Because obviously everything, the calls, everything starts right there, in the middle. You have less of a concern perhaps at the guard and tackle position. And, the other thing that I would, be, somewhat concerned about is just trying to, again, establish, some of those positions and setting those final spots on the roster and getting the best 53 you can out there and exactly what that means and what kind of casualties that might mean to a roster as well.
504-866-3200 if you'd like to join the conversation. Go ahead,
I would
Mike.
just say this about, you were talking about the Saints being predictable when Sproles was in the game last season. Well, he's not with them any longer. But you got to have, they're also predictable when Ingram's in the lineup. The one guy that's not predictable is Pierre Thomas, because he's a threat either way. So if they can get a healthy Pierre Thomas, give him Kyrie Robinson,
I would add him
think
to the mix
they're
of
going to be
unpredictable as well.
Right, you're probably going to run the ball with Robinson
But he can
or
catch the
Ingram
football
in
now.
the game. Yeah, that's true. But Tavares Cadet as well. He's going to be kind of a wild card.
Training camp at the Greenbrier Resort. When you start looking at it, obviously they've had a kind of a week to kind of get the kinks out. They put this thing together about 100 days. We're hearing they're going to build an indoor facility. They've got a 3-year deal. If things go well, I don't see if it's out the realm of possibility that that's not the training camp site for the New Orleans Saints. Lenny, what do you think?
I think it's so far, obviously at the end of the day, it's going to be judged by the success you have in the season and how it helps you prepare for it. But that said, the indoor facility, that would have been the one concern going in is what about weather? And if they're going to address that with it, and this will not be a bubble, from what I understand, it's going to be, a permanent structure, much like what they have on Airline Drive. There's already a turf field there. All you got to do is build the structure on top of that, and you've got 2 grass fields and a turf field, which is basically what you're using on Airline Drive right now. And you've got, you've got every bit as good of the amenities, plus the fact that you're in a resort and you're getting these guys out of elements and out of heat and humidity, everything that is a concern in these parts. Wearing guys down before you get to the opener is really not a factor.
That's old school, yeah.
Mike, your thoughts on the
Greenbrier? I think it could turn into a long-term deal. Whether the Saints make or win the Super Bowl or not, I just think this is a spot that everything Lenny said. I mean, to me, it's an ideal situation. The weather was in the 50s yesterday. It hasn't got out of the 60s since they've been there. I mean, and they're secluded. They're all together, and there's nowhere to go. They're kind of, by themselves.
They don't have to go anywhere.
But they don't. But I mean, as far as a nightlife, some place to sneak out, and Johnny Manziel would die up there because he wouldn't have any place to go. So I mean, I think it's going to be a long-term deal.
Let's transition to the college game, 866-3200. Your phone calls are invited. Mike, the Tigers are ranked 13th in the preseason. Most of the preseason polls, they were picked 3rd by the coaches in the SEC West. Some are calling this a transition year for the Tigers this year. I had Mike DeCilio on this program a few weeks back. He said he thought the Tigers would win 9 games. I don't know if 9 games goes over well with the Tiger faithful. What do you think about this year's edition of the LSU Tigers?
Well, I think it's, I would agree with the transitional tag, and I would agree with Mike DeCilio. I would say 9 games would be a good benchmark for this team. It sort of reminds me of the 2010 team where you didn't really know what you had. You were coming off an 8 or 9 win season the year before, but those great young guys stepped up. They were all freshmen. The Honey Badger, Tyrann Mathieu, and Eric Reed, and Tharold Simon on defense, Sam Montgomery, Mingo. All those guys were freshmen, and that set up the 11 season, which to me, until the championship game, was the best season the college football teams had in my lifetime. That resume was ridiculously good. And I think that's what this season looks like. I think you see Brandon Harris start game 1. I've seen enough of Anthony Jennings, and just judging from some things that Les Miles has been saying, it's going to be a tight race. You're going to see a lot of both quarterbacks. I mean, this is a recruiting class that they want to build a foundation with. and you combine Harris and Leonard Fournette and Malachi Dupree and even Trey Quinn and some of those guys on offense, I think they want to set this season up for next season and have all those guys coming in. Anthony Jennings had 2 springs, a season, and a bowl preparation season, and he comes out and lays an egg in a spring game. I mean, to me, how do you lay an egg in a spring game if you've had all of that and you're the guy? And it just looked to me like Brandon Harris he just looks the part. I mean, he just looked like a quarterback.
What can you add, Len?
I would hesitate to say that game one that Harris would be the starter, just like I don't think Fournette will necessarily get the first snap against Wisconsin.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you've got some returning guys, and I think you have a little bit of a loyalty to them, at least at the outset. You will see those guys very early. One of the interesting things, and I don't know, you're talking about, you know, Sean Payton maybe showing some things to just try to get in people's head. You know, Les Miles, speaking to the Baton Rouge Rotary Club yesterday, wouldn't rule out the possibility that he puts both quarterbacks on the field at the same time. You know, put one at quarterback and one at wide receiver. Yeah, let's just start putting that out there. Next thing you know, you're going to line up Fournette in a wildcat like he did some at St. Arms. So, you know, maybe you can throw it to Malachi. I don't know, but it's going to be fun to watch. There's no doubt about that, especially with so many of these good young players. And I think you're right. This is setting up for, you know, next year. But I mean, you've got Auburn, Alabama, and A&M in your division. Yes. And that makes it challenging, knowing you got to play those guys you got to play A&M at College Station on Thanksgiving night. Wow, that's as if playing Auburn and Alabama earlier in the year weren't
Auburn
enough.
on the road.
Yep.
Ole Miss gives you fits, even in their bad season.
And they're a better program.
And they're a better team. Mississippi State is everybody's favorite team, all the quote team to watch. And, you know, they always get right to that level, and then they just never can break through. So the SEC West is the toughest division in college football. If it was own conference, it would be the toughest conference in college football. But I just think, listening to Cam Cameron speak about Brandon Harris, he's just trying to temper his he don't want his enthusiasm to come out. I think he knows what he has. And I just hate to see, I mean, I don't hate to see it, but kind of like with Jordan Jefferson, the LSU was winning, but they were winning, and it's like, oh, if only they had a really good quarterback. And if they start to win with Jennings at quarterback, Miles is superstitious. He's not going to change him.
Right.
No, we're winning. Let's stick with this. And it may impede that development. To me, Harris is his footwork in his pocket presence, the way he steps up as a freshman in his first spring, it was just really impressive.
What do you think Leonard Fournette will bring to the table for this team?
It's hard to say, but I will say this, that the little bit of time that I was able to spend around him over the last couple of years, you know, on some of our TV shows and you know, with him at some other events and things like that, he's a first-class young man. Yeah. And you know, I don't think he's someone who is going to get, you know, too full of himself depending on what the situation is. He's going to be, you know, very grounded, and you know, he is as talented a football player that has come out of the New Orleans metro area in my lifetime, and it's going to be fun to watch him at the next level and just see what he can achieve.
Yeah, I mean, he's from all indications, he's a first-class person. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that he gave the MVP trophy to the quarterback from East Jackson, I mean, who does that at 17, 18 years old? Right. Most of these guys are, you know, pointing at themselves. Yeah, I did it. I said this earlier when he committed to LSU, Eric. If he doesn't gain a yard for LSU, he's going to make that program better just from his presence, his work ethic, his maturity. I think he's got leader written all over him, and I think he's going to be. Plus the fact that he's the most talented player to come out of Louisiana in a long time, if ever. Most heralded for sure. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's going to be exciting to see.
Got to transition at the quarterback position, but you got to transition at that wide receiver position as well. You got a lot of young players that are going to be counted on in this upcoming season. What is Durrell's really kind of the only returning guy at the wide receiver position? Your thoughts?
It's, you know, I think what you take the quarterback situation and the wide receiver situation, you kind of lump them together. And based on what we know from a Les Miles game plan, that just bodes even better for the Fournettes.
Right.
And for McGee and those types who are going to be lining up back there. He's going to feed those guys the ball.
Williams.
Yes.
Yep. Absolutely. They're going that's how you're going to address that situation, by just running the ball even that much more.
It'll be, like I said, like 2010, where you'll see a heavy dose of running game if it's successful. The defense looks poised to be better this season. So got some veterans coming back. So look for that type of season.
Mike, I'll ask you first, the strengths and weaknesses of this upcoming LSU team. Granted, we have not seen them in fall camp. We haven't seen them against Wisconsin yet, but just on paper.
I'd say strengths is talent. They're always going to be talented at LSU. I'd say weaknesses would be inexperience on offense.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I'd say the strength is their young talent.
Yeah.
Some of these guys that are coming in, but it's
also their weakness.
You turn that around, and it's also they've never lined up, and they've never run through those double goalposts in Tiger Stadium, and you just don't know. I mean, look, we've seen 5-star guys after 5-star guy, come through that program, and some are great, and some are not, and you just don't know right away how that's going to play out. It's the unpredictability of recruiting.
On the opposite side, you don't know about that 2-star guy that's going to turn into a Mo Claiborne,
right,
or somebody like that. You just never know.
Sure. Yeah. Plus, guys, again, it happens to a lot of programs in the SEC, but I don't think it's happened to a program to the significance that it has to LSU. The loss of so many underclassmen over the last few years to the NFL, eventually it takes its toll.
Well, and I think what you're seeing, though, is that that's basically the way they're choosing to operate this program. It's that, come in, we're going to play you as freshmen, which they do more than anyone else, not just in the SEC, but in the country in terms of who you play as freshmen. And we're hearing again this year they may play as many as 15 true freshmen. So if you play those guys 3 years from now, they're going to get their 3 years out of them, and then when they're done with that third year, they're eligible for the draft. And if they're truly talented enough, then they're on to the league, and they're right up. LSU's right up in the top 3 or 4 when we see those numbers come out in September after the NFL rosters are finalized in terms of the number of players that are playing in the NFL.
Mike, can you add anything to that?
No, I mean he said it perfectly. I mean that's their MO now. We're going to play you early, and by year 3, if you're ready to go. We'll have guys
NFL.
Coming in.
Then I will ask you first, how many wins for the Tigers this year?
I think 9's a good number in the regular season. They're going to lose that game they should have won, and they're going to win a game maybe they shouldn't have. And the bowl, they end up in the same type of bowl that they ended up last season with. And I think it's going to be a launching pad for 2015, which is going to lead to the 2016 recruiting season. Right. We can get into that later, which is going to be stellar.
Right.
Best case 10, I would say. I mean, I think there's too many tough games in there to expect to go beyond that. Worst case could be 7 or 8. So I mean, I guess that puts me in that 9 range as well.
Well, I'll tell you, a lot of excitement at Tulane right now with going back to campus, the opening of a new stadium. You look at everything that's happened with that program, moving into a new conference. Lenny, I'll take you first. Talk about this Tulane program. First of all, what does it mean to go back to campus for the program as a whole, for the university?
Well, it predates me, so it's going back. I was I won't say I was still in grade school when Tulane last played in old Tulane Stadium. So the years that I worked there, I was lugging all my equipment to the Superdome every week. But it's I think it's terrific. I really do. And the buzz is starting to build up even more now that you're seeing things. They've been laying the turf down all week, and now the end zone is going into place, and they're putting old checkerboard end zones down, which is really cool and throwback.
Now you're going back
right. And I mean the amenities. I think they've gone about doing it right. Look, Tulane is not the type that's going to fill 100,000 seat stadium like LSU is going to do, on a Saturday night. They've built something, while maybe, there's the critics out there will tell you that they've kind of pigeonholed themselves into that. Look, the Dome is not going away. If you've got the ability to bring somebody like an LSU or a Texas or an Alabama into New Orleans, you go down the street and you go play them. Exactly. Yeah. But otherwise, you can play the large majority of those teams. you can play them on campus in Yeoman Stadium and have a terrific atmosphere. And you know, they're down to like only having maybe 5,000 season tickets available for the year. It's going to be a terrific atmosphere all year long.
Yeah. Mike, you and I grew up going to that stadium.
In the shadows of Tulane Stadium.
And I mean, as kids, and I know what it was for us.
You were a ball boy, right?
Yeah, I was. I was a ball boy and of course between the Boy Scouts and everything else. I mean, are you excited?
I used to go to the games because I was a Boy Scout.
Right.
You ushered for the first quarter, and you found your seat and watched. I got to watch the Steve Foley's of the world play. It was unbelievable.
Kids don't know what they're getting. It's going to really be a lot of fun. How about on the field, Mike? What do you think about this team?
I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's going to be a quarterback battle. You got 3 guys who can battle for the starting position. I'm loving their defense. They got some really good players in the secondary. Going to be juniors this season. Curtis Johnson's recruiting better talent, more speed. I just look for Tulane to make that next step under Johnson. Bowl time.
Yeah, this is a key year in that it's your first year in the facility. It's your first year in the American.
Right.
The one thing that you don't want to do this year is go out and lay an egg.
Yes.
You need to just, I'm not saying you've got to win 7 games.
But they're
again.
in a tougher conference now.
They are, and it's going to be a challenge. I mean, you've got to play, Cincinnati and UCF, and some of the other teams. Now, Louisville and Rutgers have moved on to other leagues, but still it's a big step up from what they were playing in Conference USA. And I'm not saying you got to win 7. I think if you win 5 this year, that can be a good year. Because you look at their non-conference schedule as well. Besides the new league, they got to play Southeastern at home, and don't sleep on that.
That's a tough game.
Southeastern might be the best team in the FCS. Okay, and your other games are all against Power 5 conferences in Georgia Tech, Duke, and Rutgers.
Oh goodness!
So it's
I might have to retract that bowl.
If you can find a way to get 1 or 2 of those 4, and then split your 8 conference games. Who knows? Maybe you do go 6-6 and go to a bowl game, or worse, maybe 5-7.
Well, I like Tulane's defense. I mean, a lot of people concentrate on the fact that Curtis Johnson's brought in Peyton's style of offense.
Yes.
But I like their defense. I mean, they've improved steadily. They got a really good defensive line, really good secondary. I think led the country in interceptions last year.
They were way up there. And Lorenzo Doss is the real deal. He will play on Sundays.
In the NFL, absolutely. Yeah. And his counterpart from I guess it was East St. John, the other corner, Darius Monroe.
Right.
He's no slouch.
No, not at all. He's terrific.
Yeah.
And Sam Schofield from Lafayette, big safety in there. They've got some real players in the back end.
It's great to be excited about Tulane football.
Well, it's great to be excited about Tulane football. UL Lafayette's going to be good. With Broadway, Southeastern with Bennett. I mean, you got some pretty good quarterbacks at that next level in Louisiana this season. Louisiana football is going to be fun to watch this year.
No doubt. Well, this has been fun, guys. Thanks so much for coming down.
Always.
Lenny Vangilder of SportsNola.com and Mike Fazende of 990 AM WGSO. And thank you so much for tuning in. Remember, there's a rebroadcast of this show each and every Friday night right here on WLAE TV and also Pelican Sports Television in New Orleans, Baton Rouge, and Lafayette at 10 o'clock. Also, we'd like to thank Tulane University for our opportunity to be able to show the remnants of their new stadiums. And don't forget also, you can catch me on the radio at WGSO 990 AM. That's weekdays, 11 a.m. until 1 p.m. And you can also check us out on the web at ericasher.com. You can see the previous episodes of Inside New Orleans Sports at ericasher.com. You can always listen live or download the podcast of my radio show as well. Special thanks to our guests, Lenny Vangilder and Mike Fazende. Also to the WLAE production staff, including Ron Yeager, Jim Dotson, Donovan Joseph, Kenny Juneau, and my director, William Hill. My name is Eric Asher. Thanks so much for tuning in to Inside New Orleans Sports. We'll see you right back here next week on Thursday night. And of course, have a great evening.
Inside New Orleans Sports with Eric Asher is underwritten by the Union Capital Corporation, Natels Air Conditioning and Heating, a proud sponsor of the St. Jude Dream Home, and Mr. Ed's Oyster Bar and Fish House.